Welcome to Module 5, Part 2. We are so excited about this module. This module and this section of taking or putting self first can be absolutely transformational in your relationship. Mm-hmm. In the first part, we talked about the plank principle. We talked about the whole idea of becoming self-aware and looking inside and dealing with our own stuff.
Right.
Doing the right thing just because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, taking responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Examining, self-examination, and then taking responsibility for what you find.
Yeah. And doing it on purpose, not when somebody points something out, but just really taking personal responsibility.
Yeah.
In this section of putting self first, we're talking about the oxygen principle. This is a principle that we're probably all familiar with from the airline industry. If you've been on a flight, you've probably heard the flight attendant go through their spiel that says, if the masks drop, take your oxygen mask and put it on before you attempt to help others around you. What's the reason for that? Why would an airline go, man, take care of yourself before you take care of others? I think, we have this idea that we should always be serving, we should always be giving, we should always be helping, and now we're in a crisis. Well, and go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, especially if your children are with you and they're younger children that need your help with things.
Right.
Your first thought, your first instinct is I got to help my kids.
Right.
I got to make sure they're okay. But I think the idea is that it's really important to make sure that we're okay first, that we're set, then we can better help those around us.
Right.
It's so that we can help them.
Yes.
And help them over the long term more. Because if the pressure drops in the plane, crisis mode, whatever, you don't know how long that's going to last. So you might be okay for the first little bit, but if it continues on and you don't have any oxygen,
right,
you're
no good.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to help your children long term.
Right.
So it also has to do with ongoing.
Right. So the oxygen principle is really about self-care. Mm-hmm. So in the plank principle, it was really about self-responsibility and taking responsibility for actions. In this principle, it's more looking at self-care, taking care of me and becoming my best self so that I can help others. The definition of self-care is the practice of taking action. And I think that right there, just that beginning, if you just stop there for a second and pause and say, okay, if I understand this principle well, it's the practice of taking action.
Right. So practice automatically makes me think of ongoing, like over and over and over again.
Right.
If I'm practicing the piano, I'm regularly doing my best at the stuff I'm learning.
Right.
If I'm practicing football or whatever it is, it automatically means it's an ongoing process.
Right. And I think in the self-care
realm
nowadays, in the self-care, it's like, oh man, I've been so stressed out, I need some self-care. And so it's like we do it haphazardly. Mm-hmm. It's like
it's reacting.
I've got to have a spa day.
Yeah.
I just need some me time.
Yeah.
I need some downtime, and it's this reactionary stuff.
Oftentimes to crisis.
Crisis.
Or the feeling of, if I don't do this, I'll be in crisis.
Right. My life's out of control.
Right.
What we're talking about really is this whole idea of practicing self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Doing
Making
things
it a part of your life as a habit.
Right. On purpose, regular habit. It's the practice of taking action, though. Mm-hmm. It's not just, I need some downtime. It's the practice of taking action to preserve or to improve one's health. To preserve or to improve one's health. So self-care is really about making sure I don't decline, making sure I'm practicing taking action so that my life doesn't fall apart. I want to preserve at least here, or I want to improve my health. Mm-hmm. But don't you think that sometimes people stop right there with health?
Yeah.
and the whole idea of health and self-care.
Yeah, I think we think health equals physical health. So we might think, oh, I need to be getting more exercise or more regular exercise, or I need to eat better, or I need to have less junk food, or I need to stop drinking soda, or maybe I drink too much alcohol. You know, those kinds of things I think are what people think of all the time. But I think when we're talking about self-care, we're talking about health overall.
Yeah, it's far more than just one area. And we're going to get into some different areas here in a couple minutes. But here's what we want to start with. Just like in the Planck principle, the Planck principle was best self-driven.
Yes.
Self-care is best self-driven. It's really about, I want to be my best self. I want to become my best self. And even in the Planck principle, when we talked about taking personal responsibility, I want to take personal responsibility because I want to be my best self. I don't want to be a critical person. I'm going to take responsibility for that, and I'm going to become better in that area.
Right.
In self-care, I know that if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not my best self. If I'm not taking care of my health, let's just start there for a second. If I'm not taking care of my physical health, I'm not my best self. The oxygen principle is really about being your best self.
Yeah.
And if we stop and think about this for a minute, my life is always under construction because there's always room for improvement. There's always something in my life. We're not talking about being perfect. We're talking about movement.
Right.
We're talking about progression.
Right.
Forward movement.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to give yourself credit for that forward movement. You know, as you said, we're not talking about perfection, but we're talking about striving to improve. So when you have that movement, it's like, well, you could think, oh, there's always something that I could be better at. So you kind of could have this like almost a defeatist attitude.
It's overwhelming.
You know?
And it's like
I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to arrive. Well, you're not. Because
we all can improve.
That's the truth, because there's perfection and then there's what we're capable of.
Right.
So we're always striving, but I think it's really important to give yourself credit for the striving, for the
where you're at.
Forward movement. Yeah.
And I think, and even in that, think about this for a minute. We're talking about self-care and the tapes we play.
Yes.
And if I'm beating myself up, overwhelmed, you're no good, you'll never arrive, that's not self-care. That's self-defeating, and it's harmful. And so even in celebrating the journey, celebrating where you're at is part of self-care.
Yeah.
Because you're helping yourself.
Yeah, your emotional well-being as well. Yeah.
Right. So the whole idea is that the oxygen principle is about becoming and living into your best self. It's driven by that idea. That it's driven by the idea of, I want to be my best. And I think there's this element in which people even, it seems like so much work and overwhelming, even when we talk about success and those kinds of things, people push back against that. But the truth is, we all want to be our best. We all want to be our best. Ultimately, deep down, nobody that I know of really, and we can always probably find the exception to the rule. But no, I just want to be a jerk. I really just don't want to be my best. I really don't care about becoming better. And I think there may be some people like that, but I think for the most part, down inside of us, we really do want to be our best.
Yeah. I think those people that even appear to maybe not care, that I think it's more about the fact that they're just not aware. And they haven't done the self-discovery stuff. They haven't done the self-examination stuff. And maybe they don't want to. They're resisting that.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think everyone, with very few exceptions, really wants to be better.
Yeah.
You know, if at any time in your life that you've experienced just a glimpse of that, it's like, man, that feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I want more of that?
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's hard.
It's just that we don't always know what to do or how to do it.
Right. So the first thing we want you to catch is in the oxygen principle that just like the Planck principle, it's best self-driven.